Hello.
Hello again. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like I've been talking to you a lot this week.
It's true.
Yeah,
For a short week,
that's good.
especially.
Okay, so we were a little stumped on what to talk about this week, but I think what we landed on actually could be kind of fun. We're going to take a ride down the sales funnel.
Woohoo.
I was trying to make a whistle slide sound and I'm not good enough whistler. There you go. We're
I
going to
that
take a
was
ride down the funnel, just kind of through the lens of influencer marketing and how it can help at each of those stages of the funnel, what those KPIs are, maybe how
hmm
we're setting up programs to take advantage of those various things, and just kind of
Yep.
talking about what what clients are coming, like the needs that they're coming to us with.
Right. And sometimes the misalignment on expectation versus measurement setup
Yeah.
and how that can stump us or impact campaigns.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's climb the ladder. We're at the top of the funnel. This is my favorite client that says, I want awareness. I
Okay.
want to get the word out. I need people to know who we are. I want as many people to see this as possible.
Mm. So you know me, I like to go to like, what's the problem before the problem? So clients that come to us with that request, visibility, brand awareness, consumer sentiment. Can you tie that back to what else are they doing that this is where they're starting or where they're focused with an influencer campaign?
Well, I think we see this coming from two different types of clients. So sometimes the awareness piece is coming from a new brand. So it's either relaunch, it's either brand new in market, brand new in a new store, like a new, like we had a client purchase a brand last year that they were taking over from scratch and they wanted to just get the word out that this was now part of their family,
Family. Okay.
their company family.
Mm,
So that's like if this is a brand new product on the market or a new launch of a product, like you just like there's just this need for people to know what this is.
yeah. And I have to already say how different even those goals are at the top of the funnel because launching into a new store, where those consumers in a region aren't familiar with visible, like visually seeing that on their shelves, versus we are a family of products that are known for, better for you options and supporting families in healthy lifestyles. And we want you to know now our newest member
Right.
falls under that halo. They're different. And not that the influencer play as a strategy is different, but of course, the influencers you pick will be different. The platforms that you're on are different. So, okay, thank you for
Yeah. And then
elucidating that.
sometimes, so there's sometimes the new product, and then sometimes there's the existing product that, like, I can use my client Ergo Baby as an example because we do full funnel work for them, but the top of funnel work we've been doing for them for years. And we are lucky to have an amazing client who understands the importance of it. Ergo Baby is something that is purchased, it's a baby carrier. A mom is purchasing it pretty much once. She's purchasing it during a very finite period. She finds out she's pregnant. Probably 5 months later, she's putting together her baby registry. And she is like having that one moment in time where she is selecting probably Baby Bjorn or Ergo Baby
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and has to make that decision. And so she has to, you can't hope that you're going to accidentally hit her at that very bottom of funnel moment when she's
right,
adding to registry. She
right.
has to be aware that this is the very best baby carrier brand out there. They have other content about this. She's been seeing moms wearing this in all of her
Mm-hmm.
social media. This is a trusted brand. Awareness is so important for that product. So it's not new, but there is still this very great need for
Right.
awareness.
And like you said, it's a razor thin moment in this person's buying life cycle. And they're in and they've made the decision almost before, like you said, before you can even get to them.
Yep. And it's not a repeat purchase. It's not
Right.
like toilet paper that you're buying every few weeks.
Right.
Even if you have another baby, you're probably going to use the same carrier that you
Right.
already have.
We call that out of market demand gen. So
Okay.
she's not in market. She's out of market. And I would even say with that consumer, I don't know about you, when I was I didn't go into building my family, researching all of this stuff. It was like, shit,
Yeah.
I've got 4 weeks before this baby is here. What do I have? So it was even more reduced in terms of my research so you really do have to flood that market
Yeah.
in all the
Yeah.
right places
Yeah.
at all times. It has to be an always on campaign. And I would guess you can't even use, I don't know, I don't want to tell you your business, but you can't use just influencers who are moms or have had babies, because a new mom might not be listening to those people right away,
Right.
right?
Yeah. No, you also have to be on the, I don't know, like you have to find women when they're pregnant and making their registries because they're sharing that on social
Or
media.
even the people who are like, how do I find the right doctor? They're not even thinking about the registry. It's like, what are the things leading up to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
prime them? Yeah.
So what are the KPI? So sometimes it's if it's a pure, I mean, we used to say impressions. I have seen in the past few years, except when we're working with a PR agency, that impressions are no longer a KPI that we're being asked
Do you have
for.
do you have insight around why that is? Did it become too
There's
obvious that it was a
some
vanity metric?
No,
It's
because
not
for
built
us it's
down.
not like it's been there used to be a thing in what we do. I think it was more popular in the years of Twitter where there was like estimated impressions. And I
Mm.
know for a while it was the standard to provide estimated impressions as if that was the thing.
Yeah.
And then we kind of made a stand a few years ago. This is bullshit. We're not going to play this game anymore.
Well, that was probably linked to earned media print days where a
Well, because yeah,
circulation,
like estimated was always okay in the PR world. Like I remember
right.
when I was in PR, like you always took actual impressions and then you multiplied by 3 because the magazine was left on the seat in the doctor's office and someone else picked it
Yeah.
up.
It was still funny numbers. It was
Yeah,
still
yeah.
fuzzy
In
math.
the case of Twitter, it was like the estimated impressions was if every single follower of that person had seen it, which we know is not
Right.
how this works. So we started doing actual impressions. But I think the primary reason that impressions have gone away is that the platforms have all kind of been flip flopping and changing all over the place, like how they define an impression versus how
Oh,
they define a video
a
view,
video view.
like how many seconds it has to be. So video views is just it's a much meatier metric. It has more meaning I think there's a little bit more consistency across platforms
Okay.
with it.
Yeah.
So we provide that. We have one client in particular who's always interested in understanding the reach. So not necessarily the video views, because that could be one person seeing it 5 times is going to count as a 5.
Right.
But this client is very interested in knowing the reach, like the number
One
of people
unique,
who have
we used to
seen
call
it,
it unique
uniques,
views,
right?
right?
On in
Unique
blog
page
days.
views.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a thing. And then I just posted something in my newsletter. Rachel Carton from the Link in Bio
Can bio.
newsletter,
Yeah.
which is excellent, is publishing results from her first ever survey. And she was showing that carousels are more popular in the
Hmm.
social media management world. Carousels are more popular than short form video.
You said in the social media management world, which to me means the people creating the
The
content for their
brand people
brands.
creating the content are preferring to do carousels. They're seeing better results and are preferring to
Okay.
do carousels over short form video. And we have been pushing clients to include carousels in
Okay.
their programs.
Well, Instagram is doing a lot, isn't it?
Instagram loves carousels.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've talked
TikTok
about
loves carousels.
the algorithm behind it, or the formula of, if you have 5 photos in the carousel, it'll show the first one, and then maybe the next time it'll show the second one. So it gives
Yeah.
Instagram more ammunition
More
to
stuff to
hook
show. And then
eyeballs.
you have a better chance of being seen. So for that, obviously, it's not a video. So you can't do video views.
Right.
That
Okay.
one, and I think we do. I
Still with
think we do impressions on
okay.
that one. Yeah, but those are
Yeah.
the KPIs we're looking at
And
there.
I want to go back to the reasons that you laid out for why a brand would do that. I know that we've worked with brands who, at different touch points, seasonal, they had different packaging. And they wanted to make sure consumers could find them in the produce aisle in the sea of commoditized,
Yeah.
commodities, fruits and vegetables, this holiday packaging. So it's like familiarizing the consumer. And then we've also had really, I think this is fascinating in digging deeper into it, working with supplements and using imagery to, I'm going to use the word brand, the supplement in a way that consumers easily take in and aren't like, oh, here's snake oil or here's something to be. And like we said when we were off camera, dogs and kids, like having pictures of
So you're talking about like using the influencer marketing to create a level of trust.
a level of trust, a level of affinity with something consumers already. So the first one is literally visual awareness. What am I looking for in store? How do I keep planting that in the consumer's mind in all kinds of places so that when they're going shopping, they're like, oh, here's that new lettuce pack that I was
Yeah, and
just
we do
reading about.
that. You and I were talking a little bit before we hit record. We have lots of clients who are launching in a new store or,
Yes.
to your point, like have new packaging, want to drive people to a specific retail location. So some of the tricks that we do for that, we're big fans of the parking lot shot, showing the influencer in the parking lot with a cart is awesome with the big logo of the store behind them. If there's an end cap, showing the end cap, showing the product on
It's
the
like a
end cap.
scavenger hunt in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
It's working them literally in that top of funnel still through the touch points so they're growing know like trust factor. Excuse me, through the influencer for the brand. But I wanted to point those out too that yes, the KPIs could be impressions or video views. The reason for those might be varied along the way. Sorry. And somebody's going to be editing
Mm-hmm.
nicely this one. And that other piece of imagery, whether it's video or still, does a lot of heavy lifting in the emotional impact for the consumer. Now, you've talked about KPIs, and I agree with everything that you said. I still wonder, you preface the whole thing by saying those brands that we love and Ergo Baby, who gets how important this is. How do you and I, as experts here, encourage brand teams, brand marketers to adopt that same approach? They get how important it is because that's a phrase that carries so much.
I think I think
Because we're not
with
talking
the
about sales, which they
right.
love.
Well, with the huge explosion of D2C during COVID, I think there was this outsized importance placed on bottom of funnel and getting that final click
Capturing
to
that.
purchase. And because I feel like social media in general is often punished because it is so measurable. And just because something is measurable doesn't make it the most important thing. It's just measurable. So I do think we're seeing a little bit of a swing in the opposite direction. There was a really awesome interview with the CMO of Liquid Death a couple of months ago, and he talked about the fact that awareness is so important that there's there's a sales funnel. No one is going to purchase unless they are aware of this product in the first place and they need to know what it is. So I think we're seeing a little bit of a swing back. It's tricky. It's hard to convince a client who is very sure that they want something.
To accept something
money's
else.
no object. There are some tools in our arsenal.
Right. The
We
deeper dives.
sometimes partner. There's a partner over in Europe that we use for brand lift studies. It definitely it's not cheap to do, and it takes quite a bit of work to set up. We're setting one up right now for a client, but that's a great way if you're dealing with a leadership team that understands the importance of measurement and just wants to kind of really understand what kind of lift they're getting, where some holes might be, does this matter or not. Incorporating a brand lift study into a campaign is a great way to do it. And you can learn other stuff as well. We had a client, a food product, and they had a good housekeeping seal of approval on their product. And you get to ask, like, I think it's 10 to 12 questions in the brand lift study. And so we were asking the usual things that we would ask, like, you know, is your perception that this is a good for you choice? Has that improved, you know, increased? And just like the typical things that you would ask in a brand lift study. But they were really curious if this good housekeeping seal of approval was
Move the needle.
meaningful to
Yeah.
people, because it's expensive. For those who
Okay.
don't know, you
Yeah.
pay for that. It is not, I mean, you have to qualify for it, but it costs money to have that seal. And they had no idea if it was moving the needle. And so they slipped that in as one of the questions, and they discovered zero needle movement. Like there was
No ROI.
no one cared about the good housekeeping
No one
seal
cared.
of approval. So
Okay.
that money they spent on that brand lift study saved them so much money
Yeah.
long term, and they were
Right.
very grateful that
Year
they
after
had
year.
done.
And you brought up a great point about during COVID, D2C, e-commerce went nuts for unforeseen. We couldn't forecast that. We knew like the Instacarts of the world were poised to do well, but what would have taken 5 years was condensed into 3 months, let's say. Might be wildly dramatic there. The folks who are in the position to make decisions at brands now may be in that position having inherited legacy protocols like a good housekeeping seal. This is just the way we've always done it. I was handed this. I have to renew this certification every year without challenging it. And the CMO of Merrill actually just put out a great post. I will share it with
Merrill,
you.
like the shoe brand?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Saying performance does not correct lack of relevance. Because you can push
Love
performance
that.
marketing all you want. You can sell until your brand loses relevance because the top of the funnel isn't being nurtured. So I think we've got a couple of things going here where you and I know how to balance, and maybe we'll get to more parts of the funnel as we talk, but I think we're calling out that top of funnel tends to be a little bit overlooked, tends to be a little bit maybe disregarded due to what's happened in the last 5 years. We're swinging back, but I'm going to challenge our brand counterparts to poke holes in legacy systems and legacy choices that they may have inherited that are no longer serving them, because we're in a post-COVID world, and we're in a brand relevance crisis to some degree, in favor of capturing metrics. Like you said, I've always said this, if we can get numbers, it absolves us from having to dig into sort of qualitative and do those brand lift studies. Numbers satisfy so much, even if they're not meaningful.
Yeah. I also think running a test and getting numbers from it, sometimes you have to try things a few times. Sometimes, like marketing is an art. I mean, there's science and art combined, but there's a lot of art involved. I can give an example. We did a program for a client, a dairy related client. So there's all sorts of dairy, as we know, like as specific as Limburger cheese and as general as the half gallon of milk that we all have in our refrigerator. And we did an Instacart program with them because they were curious to know if the influencer content could drive purchase. And this was finally a way for this perishable product to measure performance. Very exciting. We did the program as we normally do. We included the Instacart links, and it hardly sold a thing. We actually kind of stopped the experiment midway through and redirected that budget elsewhere. Here's what's interesting. We looked a little bit deeper at the data. It wasn't that Instacart wasn't working for them and that this content wasn't driving purchase. We picked the wrong recipes. So the influencers who are writing this content, typically we give them free reign. Like if you're in the dairy space, all dairy is good dairy. Like we don't care. You want ice cream, get ice cream. You want cottage cheese, get cottage cheese. Like
More
we're
broad.
agnostic. Buy whatever dairy you want. But in the world of Instacart and getting someone to make a purchase, it has to be a product that's probably not already in their refrigerator. And most people probably already have a stick of butter, a half gallon or a gallon of milk. Maybe you already have some shredded cheddar cheese. The recipes that work well are the ones that call for something you probably don't already have. A giant tub of sour cream.
Yes.
Or that very specific type of cheese. Or a gallon of buttermilk. Or something that's not a staple in people's refrigerator.
Now, how did you figure that out? That was not AI. That was you
No,
guys poring over the data.
that was me being a cheese geek. No, no, no. I mean, it was like
Yeah.
just in look, we were kind of confused because we're like, this is so great. Like, this recipe is delicious, and surely people are gonna like that's so nice. You can just click add to cart, and it puts it all in the cart, and then you can get the other things that you need. And certainly not everyone's going to do that, and some people are still going to the store or whatever. But we were surprised at how
The
poor the
lack of
results were, and so
traction.
we just kind of dug in a little and
Yeah.
I mean, I think the first thing you look at is, okay, well, what's the content? Was the content compelling enough? And it was well written and the recipes were good. But then when you dug deeper and saw what those products were,
Yeah.
it
It
wasn't
made
something
sense
that
that they
people
weren't.
needed to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little outdated at this point, but Nielsen did a study with Tap Influence maybe in 2015.
That has to be out. I haven't heard that name in
Yeah,
a
I know,
bit.
right? Right. Let's have a moment of silence. So, but it studied, I want to say a soy milk brand. I don't
Yes,
know
they
which one.
have. Like their big client was Silk.
Okay.
We had a salesperson who we got from Tap Influence, and I heard a lot about Silk. That was their
Okay.
big client.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So it was a fascinating study. And I'll send you the deck. I'll give you the too long, didn't read version. So they tracked consumers who had been exposed to influencer content around those products and consumers who had not been exposed to influencer content. I believe they linked it through loyalty cards at the grocery stores to track sales. And the bottom line was incremental sales for the exposed group equaled like $2.85 per thousand impressions, CPM.
Okay.
And they also noticed that it sucked away from competitive buys. So they were pulling in more sales, like their loyal customers were buying more, but also their non customers were buying based on being exposed to the influencer content. 10 years is a long time, but I do think there's got to be some bones to that, some
Yeah.
fundamentals that are still in
Yeah.
play.
And it kind of gets back to what I was saying before. Like, just because you can measure something doesn't make it important. And also, just because you can't measure something or it's very difficult to measure doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Right. Right. Think of all the people that lurk and see content and never comment, engage, they scroll on by, but it's boop in their memory bank and it adds to the next TikTok they saw with the same brand or the billboard or the in-store coupon, the retail media network play.
Yeah.
There's so much of that, which
I just gave
marketing,
that I just gave that example on my LinkedIn. I love the Wiser Than Me podcast by Julia Louis Dreyfus. And she's an investor in this product called the Mill, which is a food recycler that you keep in your kitchen, and it turns not quite into compost, but it like chops up and bakes your food waste and turns it into little brown gravelly stuff that's very
delicious treats
it's very good for chickens, which I don't have, but it decreases food waste dramatically
without having to do the composting thing, which a
without
lot of
yeah,
people are
because
not
where
into.
I'm at war with I'm happy to compost, as are the raccoons in my backyard, and
Right.
the raccoons won this
So you
war.
have to be careful who you're feeding.
Yeah, so I needed another solution because I feel very guilty about food waste and I wanted to do something. So, anyway, Julia Louis Dreyfus is an investor in this company, and I've been listening to this podcast for over a year, and she talks about it all the time. And it was very expensive when it first came out. And so I just hear and be like, oh, one day, boy, would I love that. And I just kept listening and listening. And then last weekend happened to be Memorial Day weekend, and the raccoons were like particularly nasty and like literally knocked the entire thing over. Their little footprints all over everything. And I got completely fed up, and I was like, well, it's Memorial Day. Perhaps there's a sale. I discovered the price had gone down dramatically and that you could now rent this device for just $34 a month,
Wow.
which is less than the dollar amount I assigned to my annoyance over the raccoons.
Your ire with the raccoons.
So I did it. It came yesterday. I installed it. It's awesome. I love it. But
Beautiful.
like that was a year. That took me a year.
Out of market, but thinking about it. And by the way, there is no brand strategy that would be in its right mind to be based on the fight that a homeowner is having with raccoons. Like that's not factoring into anybody's playbook. But rinse, repeat. That's the emotional trigger is happening over and over and over for consumers. And that familiarity, it's like the familiarity has to go up while the emotional trigger is kind of wearing you down in this
Yeah.
case. And then
Yeah.
it supersedes and it flips a switch for you.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So we are clearly heavily in favor of that top of funnel play
Yes.
for influencer marketing.
But sometimes, I mean, there are clients who do awareness campaigns with us all the time and then sometimes want to convert. There are clients, we had a client who was launching a product in Costco and they needed the awareness that this product is now in Costco. But as anyone who has dealt with a product at Costco might have heard, they release the product they take the product into a small number of regional stores and you have to like hit some certain threshold of sales to get the wide distribution.
Right. Make the case for it.
Yeah, so sometimes conversion is very important and there's ways you can measure sales now. We often measure clicks through to a store locator if it's an in-person buying opportunity.
Love that.
I mean, I think it's you can set up the paid, we do paid amplification on all of our campaigns. You can optimize that for conversion versus reach.
And think about how timely it is. Like you can activate against this. I mean, not that paid and social aren't also nimble, but to have spokespeople basically on board and promoting this and creating visibility is a fairly quick turnaround, especially if you know in advance, which a Costco event you would know about.
Right.
Like it's just so aligned. It's so smart.
I think, and like I said, I was kind of joking that my favorite clients are the ones who want awareness because I do think that that's where influencer marketing shines its brightest.
Yes.
But the conversion is totally legit. I think I'd give the caveat totally legit if they are also doing awareness, and it doesn't have to be through us. It could be TV ads, it could be billboards, it could be planes flying over my house. Like, I don't care what it is. There has to be something else happening 100%. To drive that awareness so that the first time someone is seeing it is not in an Instagram post and then there's an expectation that they're going to purchase it immediately.
Sales
with
pitch.
Nothing else happening in the world.
Right. That's bad news on both ends of that, right? Like, it's not going to perform well if it's just an unknown, unheard of newcomer with no branding momentum. And also to be sold and pitched straight away. Consumers can be like it might actually be counterintuitive to your branding efforts.
Right.
So start with one and like we said, the other thing about that funnel is there are different advocate types to plug into different places. And we've talked about how some influencers can make that transition or are doing well selling. Most are not. So who do you marry that with? And it's
the ones who are, if you watch them, they have created their own little sales funnel. They are posting about it multiple times every week. Mm-hmm. They're maybe doing a reel, then they're doing 3 to 5 stories, and then they're repeating those stories every couple of weeks. And so because they know you are likely not going to buy it right away, and they have to remind you,
and they're happy to do that, right? Like that money. It's part of the formula because if you've done the right thing as a brand or the agency helping them, you've set it up to be a win-win, mutually supportive, and they'll go to that length. Whereas if you expect that of a paid play at the top of funnel with influencers, you're going to be really unhappy, like really dismayed with influencers. Like you've said, like, why can't we also get them to cross post on all the channels if they have the content anyway? Because they're charging for that now, because that's real estate. So you have to be careful of what your expectations are KPI wise. Even when it comes to like content creation, the affiliates are going to do it because it's their sales funnel that's at play there. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff.
We made our way to the bottom. I thought we were gonna. For a moment there, it seemed like we got stuck at the top. Like when you try to go down the slide with your little kids and your butt gets stuck at the top.
I don't know what you're talking about. Well, and one last thing, I know that you probably experienced this too with the affiliate, which I'm painting at the bottom of the funnel as an affiliate play for the most part. You'll also find really good influencers, like folks who you want to bring back into a paid ambassadorship or,
Yeah.
influencer campaign. So it's a really can be this sophisticated cycle of talent and how you're using them. And as you've already said, then the reason you should start with influencer at the top is because it does so gracefully go into the bottom of the funnel, but it also feeds all your other awareness plays, your PR, your trade show presence, your website language, your social media channels, rinse, repeat. So even though Danielle and I are firmly like the brand awareness is enough, there's still so much that you need to be pulling into your other marketing mix from that influencer play up here. I love my hands all over the place. Like people in the just listening and not seeing me won't know I'm doing that. But there's so much richness there
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
tap into. That's another reason it makes it such an economical play, even if you can't marry it exactly to sales right
Right.
off the bat.
Right.
All right,
Okay.
we did it.
We did it. And we will be
Yes.
back next week.
Sounds good. See ya.
Bye.